Good afternoon, it's Lee Cassidy from Tactile Technology, and we've got our regular daily SMESec. So today we're going to talk about EPP and EDR, and we're going to talk about the difference, but we're also going to do a quick refresher on the kind of things that you need to protect against and why. So let's kick off straight away then. So I've got some slides. So the idea is to give you a good picture of, the kind of things you need to do to actually get a solid foundation on your security. So first of all, we're going to talk about is defending against those cyber threats. So some advanced cyber threats that are coming out, and there's many of them at the moment, and they come in different guises. Some of them against vulnerabilities within the operating system or the applications that you're using on your machines. Some are directed against your user and the credentials that they've harvested in some form. It could be a phishing attack, or it could be some kind of malware that's utilized to do it. So there are many forms it can take. But the key thing is they're looking to harvest information, increase the privileges that they've got on your system, and be able to then utilize that information for some kind of gain, whether that's using your system against another organization in some kind of distributed denial of service attack, or whether they're going to take information and either ransom you or use the information for some financial gain as well. But the key things you need to do as an organization is, first of all, is understand what your risk is and how to reduce that risk. And we're talking about a digital risk in this respect. So we're talking about your computer systems and the information that resides in those computer systems, whether that's in an application or inside some kind of database or document that we need to protect. So customer information, intellectual property, credit card information, sales information, those kind of things that we need to protect. What we're trying to do then is secure these against these forms of attack. So we need to understand first where they are, what the risk we've got against them, and also where the information resides. We also need to understand what the reputational impact might be as well, because that's one of the challenges with this, that the actual reputational impact commonly is much greater than any impact from loss of service or loss of the information itself. So we've got to be very careful that we understand what the ramifications are if we actually are made vulnerable and we do have our systems taken from us and information taken. What would happen if people knew about that? What would our reputational impact be? And a lot of times it's going to be greater than any of the other losses you might have. We want to really protect any sensitive financial information, and if we've got any health records. So if we're some kind of health organization, insurer or something, and we have health records, we need to protect those as well. But again, we don't want that information getting into the wild. In the US, they've got a terminology for that kind of data called HIPAA. In this country, we have that same type of information. We don't use that specific terminology. We just call it medical records in this side. So any organization in any form of health, dentistry, doctors, those kind of organizations that hold patient records, again, it's really important that we don't allow that to go out. But finally, we actually want to make sure that our email isn't compromised as well, because our email being compromised can actually create lots of different things. I've been talking regularly about one of the new ways that people have actually utilized email from a fraudulent perspective with a thing called email thread hijacking. And the idea is that they take control of a machine, they get into that user's email account, and what they'll do is find a thread of an email. So we've got multiple emails sent to and from between two people, where one of the individuals is someone that you can actually utilize that email thread to actually do something. Whether that's getting them to go into a form and put in their credentials to be able to hijack their system, whether that's actually to get them to make a payment to an account which isn't actually a customer or supplier account, but they think they've got to make a payment to an account based on an email that you've sent to them or someone else in the organization sent to them. But because it's in a thread of an email conversation that's been in progress, there's less chance of it being identified by that individual as fraudulent, because it looks like it's in the middle of a conversation they're having with you, with someone they trust, a trusted member of the organization. It could also be used to actually go to another organization, so one of your suppliers or one of your customers, to do the same thing. So get one of your customers to pay a payment, or one of your suppliers to make a payment as well. So we've got to be very careful about what happens there with these kind of issues. So what we're trying to do is prevent these things happening. But one of the key things is having some kind of monitoring in place. And we're going to talk about the difference between EPP and EDR in a second. But the key thing is monitoring and understanding what's happening, be able to respond to any suspicious activity, be able to identify, the threat itself, and also, carry out some mitigation strategy to stop that threat, and also then, to have some kind of sustained IT support for the individual or individuals are impacted throughout this situation, this crisis that's been generated from this attack. And then finally, reducing the risk of any non-compliance fines, because if you're FCA regulated or any other organization, there may be some compliance things that you may not be meeting if you don't deal with the situation correctly. And in a lot of cases now, we're finding that insurers are actually looking for an EDR platform rather than EPP platform, and I'll explain the difference between them in a second, for any cybersecurity insurance, so you won't be able to claim or have any cover unless you've got an EDR product. So first of all, let's talk about what the difference is between EPP and EDR. So first of all, EPP stands for endpoint protection. EDR stands for endpoint detect and response. So first of all, endpoint protection is a barrier. So it's using your traditional antivirus type technologies to actually create a barrier to stop people getting onto that endpoint, whether endpoint is a end user desktop or laptop computer, or whether it's some kind of server infrastructure. So the endpoint that's there, it's stopping as a barrier. So we're using antivirus type technologies, and we may have some kind of personal firewall on there as well to stop as a barrier, someone actually getting onto that machine. So that's the initial thing. So it's creating effectively good locks on your doors and windows of your commercial or residential property to try and stop the burglar getting in the first place. So that's what EPP is. So once the burglar's in and we've got an EPP product, the chances are you're not going to know about it. And the problem is, you can't deal with something if you don't know about it. So that's the first thing. EPP is a protection tool, a barrier to stop someone breaking in. Once they've broken in, you wouldn't know about it, and there's nothing you can do at that point. So let's talk about EDR and the difference with EDR then. So EDR has that same capability of creating that first barrier of defense, the locks and window locks on the actual building to stop someone breaking in. But it's also like having an alarm system. So if we have an alarm system in our property, we will monitor for things like motion detection, doors opening or windows open, or glass being broken. The sound of glass being broken is quite common nowadays with some of the modern smart alarm systems. So we can actually know that something's happened. We can also look for behavioral patterns. So, if we had cameras around the house, we may look for the direction a person's going and what they're trying to do. And that's a behavioral pattern we might look for. So in digital terms, we're going to do the same with an EDR product. So we're going to look at our machine. We're going to understand what normal looks like over a period of time. And we're going to also have specific alarms looking for certain things happening. And if they happen, then what we're going to do is, alert that there's actually some kind of threat ongoing at that point in time, and we've detected it. So we can detect it from the pre-execution of a particular application type. We can do it from the downloading of an application type, and we can see it from what we call command and control communication. So a piece of software connecting to somewhere that's out either on the dark web or somewhere from a foreign country that we know would be related to some kind of cyber attack. So from that, those mechanisms, the behaviors, specific things that are happening, we can identify that there is a threat and something's ongoing. As soon as that happens, our EDR tool, and the tool we utilize is SentinelOne's platform, we can straight away actually start to automate the process of remediating. So we're looking to mitigate the issue, and we're going to stop what's happening. So if we see a particular piece of software starting to launch that we know is a threat, we'll try and stop that and kill it. If we see communications out to a dark web site or to a site that we know is going to be a cyber threat source, we will look to stop that or that communication. But we'll also look for other things, because one of the things that a lot of threats do, once they're there, especially malware wise, they're going to do what we call a lateral movement. So they're going to try and get themselves from one machine to another machine within the network, and they're trying to move across and effectively spread around the organization. Again, if we see anything like that, we're going to automate the process, effectively encapsulating the machine to stop any of that lateral movement. So stop any software moving between machines. So we end up, having the whole network of PCs or Macs or whatever you've got infected by this malware. So straight away, we're going to encapsulate it and stop it spreading from that point. The next thing we're going to do is alert someone, and it's quite important that we have someone to be able to go through effectively the incident management process. And I talked about that when we talked about the 10 steps that the National Cybersecurity Centre set out for small business to be more protected. One of them was incident management. And the key thing there is knowing who is responsible to monitor and manage the incident. Commonly with small businesses, they don't have any security staff. They may have someone who may be responsible for their organization from a cybersecurity perspective, but very rarely have they any cybersecurity qualifications or knowledge or expertise. So that would be then put out to a third party. It could be your IT company, it could be a third party cybersecurity supplier, or with our customers, it would be ourselves. And then what we'll do is be alerted to our SOC, so our Security Operations Center will be alerted by the EDR software, the Endpoint Detect and Response software would say, I've got an ongoing threat at the moment, do something about it. So first thing that the agent would do was have a look and see what's happening. What stage are we? Are we right at the beginning and we've just got some basic issues, and we use what we call the MITRE attack framework. So it takes us through all the different points, from beginning to end, and we can actually see what stage that particular attack is in and understand what to do to deal with it. The other thing we're going to do is understand how it happened in the first place, because prevention in the future, we need to understand how it happened. Was it some kind of vulnerability within the operating system or a particular application? Was it from, an accidentally downloaded piece of software? Was it from a legitimate piece of software that's been infected in some way? Was it through the end users, not, understanding a threat within an email and clicking on a link and downloading some malware? Was it them going to a website and actually giving their credentials away? So it's understanding how it happened in the first place is critical for the future to actually improve the security, because we're always striving for excellence in everything we do. And one of the key things in cybersecurity is continually to improve in what we do. So again, we need to have that information to be able to improve for the next iteration. The other thing we need to do then is look at mitigating it. So see if we've stopped the attack. If it's a threat no longer a valid threat, then what do we do next? What the key thing there is to be able to recover. We talked about the NIST framework. Identify, so understand what your systems look like, where the threats are. what the information is, how important that information is, and setting a threshold for your risk, on that side from a digital perspective. Protect, then detect. Once we've detected it, we're going to respond to it. So stop the thing happening in the first place. And then final thing we're going to do is recover. So that recovery piece is we've got to get ourselves back to where we were before the attack. The technology we use, Sentinel-1, has the ability to actually run back to 1 minute before the attack and give you exactly where you were from that point in time, with all of the risks taken away. But again, because we've done that analysis to understand how it happened in the first place, we can ensure that it doesn't happen again. Because we can educate the end user if it was an end user error. They filled in the details of their credentials into a site, they'd downloaded some software that they shouldn't have done. Whatever that was educationally or an awareness related, we can deal with that. If it was some kind of vulnerability from an application or from the operating system, again, we can look at how we can ensure that doesn't happen again by either raising it with the manufacturer of the software or operating system to say there is a 0-day threat here, or ensuring we've got the right patches installed that will actually stop that particular issue being a threat in the future. So we've covered off finding it, dealing with it, and then recovering back, but also looking at what we're going to do to go forward and ensure our process, our procedures, and the automation capability is going to ensure that we're okay. Hopefully that's given you a good picture of what we do in these circumstances. I'm just going to jump to one more slide. I think it is this one here, which gives you a little bit of point of view about what we're going to do around endpoint. So one, protect yourself against endpoint, against some kind of threat using endpoint detection response, EDR tool. We're going to defend your brand using this, because one of the key things is your organization, you personally. You need to protect that. We're going to use a SOC service to monitor and also do remediation. So 24/7 service delivered from our SOC to make sure that you're protected. We're going to stop the threats. We're going to investigate the origins, and we're going to minimize the harm that's been delivered by those. But we're also going to look at the software as service type pieces, such as Office 365 and other cloud-based applications as well, because again, they're going to be a potential threat, for our organization. So things coming in via that, but also we do have information and data in those places as well. So it's important that we actually protect those as well. Hopefully that was a useful 15 minutes of your day, giving you a picture about the difference between EPP and EDR, and also the difference around having a SOC service, so a security operations center that actually will monitor 24/7 and react to a threat alert and actually deal with it to mitigate the risk of that particular threat, and also to be able to recover back to the original position, so you're not don't have an issue anymore. But finally, understanding what happened so we can actually ensure in the future it doesn't happen again as well. Always learning, always improving, which is a critical thing. A couple of things just to keep you informed. And like I say, today we did our piece on EPP and EDR, so hopefully you've got a better understanding of that. Tomorrow we're going to move on to SIEM and network security, and I'll explain what SIEM stands for tomorrow, but it's more around understanding the infrastructure side within your organization and capturing logs, metrics, and also alerts to be able to, again, protect your business, to make sure that any threat that happens is mitigated as quickly as possible and doesn't become a harmful situation for your business. The other thing is we've got in the hot seat next Tuesday. So we've got Ranjit Bath from Practical Payments join us at 2 p.m. next Tuesday when we do in the hot seat. We normally do these on a Tuesday and a Thursday, or Tuesday or Thursday, depending on the number of people we've got lined up. So we've got Ranjit Bath next Tuesday at 2 p.m. So join me for that. And if you want any more information on what we do around security and services, have a look on our website. That's www.tactiletechnology.com, and we can provide lots of information there. If you've got any questions, again, raise a comment on this post where you've seen the video, and I'll come back to you with any questions you've got at all to try and help you understand more in plain English how security affects you and not in Klingon. Thank you very much.